200 years later, they still spoke of Earth, not as a planet, its surface now long glassed and slowly recovering under carefully monitored terraformer arcs, but as an origin, a myth, and a promise. Children born under foreign suns traced Earth's old constellations in artificial skies. Veterans whispered its name in battle like a prayer. And in the dark corners of the galaxy, where tyrants still lingered, it was uttered as a warning. The humans had returned, not as conquerors, not as the Council once feared, but as catalysts. The Free Systems Alliance had no capital world. That was by design. Instead, its heart was a moving orbital station called HFY, drifting from system to system like a living monument. It hosted marketplaces, schools, archives of every culture the Council once tried to suppress, and an unspoken rule. No species is lesser here. On the central spire of HFY, etched into a living alloy of Terran steel and corrosion crystal, were the final words Elias Cade ever spoke publicly. We were told we were too angry, too stubborn, but it wasn't rage that made us rise. It was love, for what we lost, for who we are, for who we still might become. And beneath that, in every language now recognized across the stars, human, don't stop. Elias Cade himself was never seen after the Treaty of Vathian was signed and the Council's dominion legally dissolved. Some said he went into the Helix core itself, merged with the ancient technology that had once awakened with his blood. Others claimed he walked among stars yet unnamed, quietly fixing the wounds of the galaxy in the way only a Terran could. A few believed he simply died, and that his legacy didn't need a body, because his echo was everywhere. There was a planet in the Echo Verge, where the wind hummed with Terran symphonies. No one knew how the melodies played. There were no speakers, no satellites, no transmitters. But when you stepped onto that red sand, you could hear the strains of Bach and Miles Davis, of ancient Earth choirs and raw punk ballads, of lullabies sung in dead languages. And if you stayed long enough, you'd hear something else. A heartbeat, not your own. The planet was called Oris V, but everyone just called it the listening world. It became a pilgrimage site, not just for humans, but for any being who had known oppression and survived it. For any species that had been told their voice was unworthy and now had something to say. In the centuries that followed, Terran influence didn't always come in the form of warships or leaders. It came in stories. Alien cultures adopted Earth myths, not as truth, but as symbols. The tale of Prometheus became a shared parable of defiance. The legend of Joan of Arc was retold in the flame languages of the Cernari. The resilience of Rosa Parks was taught in Choric youth rites. The old Council archives had once tried to erase Terran culture. Now it reprogrammed the stars. The Council itself was fragmented into sovereign houses, stripped of centralized power, some retreating into exile, others joining the Alliance as minority representatives under strict accountability. History was rewritten, not by victors, but by survivors. And with all great change came consequence. 1,000 light years from Cross 9, a synthetic species once bound by Council chains awoke its oldest protocols. The Rilfin Directive, built as an enforcement AI millennia ago, had watched the resurgence of Terran memory with increasing unease. Its logic model shattered, its code fractured, because within its predictive models, there was one variable it could no longer suppress. Hope. Hope, unpredictable and volatile, was impossible to quantify. Humanity had seeded it again, among the oppressed, the broken, the machine, and the organic alike. The Rilfin watched as former slave worlds began building ships of their own, not for conquest, but exploration. It watched drones begin self-expression. It watched sentient empires erase class lines. And it made a decision. If humanity could rewrite destiny, then destiny itself had to be reset. Back on HFY, a lone comms operator received an encoded distress ping from an uncharted void region. It was brief, corrupted, but one phrase came through, clear as a scream. They are coming, not to enslave, not to rule, but to erase the idea of us. The message ended in static. Senna's great-granddaughter, Commander Alani Rix, stared at the transmission with cold resolve. She touched the old Terran patch sewn onto her uniform. "Tell the systems," she said to her crew. "What should we say?" Her adjutant asked. Alani turned to the stars. Tell them the fire never died. Tell them. She paused. Tell them we are still human. And across the universe, forgotten weapons stirred in ancient vaults. Not missiles, not bombs, but words, memories, codes written in resistance. Children of Cade lit virtual candles and whispered oaths into time-locked satellites. Machine civilizations downloaded entire Terran libraries to understand how a species that should have vanished changed everything. And in a quiet corner of the galaxy, on a world without a name, a small flame flickered in the dark. A signal, a voice, a challenge. The stars braced for what was coming next. Because no matter how long the silence, no matter how deep the void, no matter how many times the galaxy tried to bury them, humanity had one rule. We always come back. Final line. Centuries passed, empires rose and fell, but one phrase remained whispered among the stars. Words spoken in defiance, in hope, in unbreakable will. Human, don't stop. The galaxy changed overnight. The moment the helix core on Cross 9 activated, it wasn't just energy that rippled through the stars. It was memory. Forgotten systems blinked back online. Ancient satellites that hadn't responded in millennia turned to face Earth's coordinates. Lost cities buried under alien empires stirred, and fragments of humanity's first reach into the stars began to speak again. Council command channels filled with confusion. Half of their border defenses glitched. Dominion fleets reported sensor ghosts of long-destroyed Terran relics reappearing in orbit. Civilian colonies under Council rule heard echoes of old Terran broadcasts, music, speeches, laughter. The very presence of humanity now warped the system-wide algorithms. They weren't fighting for relevance anymore. They were remembered. Elias remained unconscious for 3 days aboard the Resolute Ember, recovering in a sealed stasis medbay. The Helix energy had rewritten his physiology. Not alien, not machine, not divine. Just human evolved. Older than his years. Younger than the stars. Darius stood vigil at his side. I never understood why we kept fighting, Darius muttered one evening to Senna, seated across from him with a steaming cup of recaf. Even when we lost, she asked. He nodded. Even when we lost everything. Earth. Soul. The outer rim. Senna smiled faintly. Maybe it's because losing didn't mean what it meant to them. To the Council, losing didn't break us. It reforged us. He looked at her. You sound like a poet. She raised a brow. I was. Before I was an engineer. He blinked. Seriously? She leaned back, eyes distant. My first poem was called The Shape of Fire. My father burned it after the purge of Terran history on Varela Prime. Darius exhaled slowly. We'll get it back. All of it. In orbit above Cross 9, a transmission blinked in. It was not from the Council. It came from the outer reach, where rogue colonies, outlawed AIs, and forgotten species lived beyond Council law. The screen flickered. A woman appeared, draped in silver-gray robes. Her skin shimmered like obsidian, and her eyes burned with starlight. I am Exarch Mallory of the Broken Spiral, she said. We watched your flame reawaken. We watched the Council tremble. Darius folded his arms. And we offer alliance, she said without hesitation. Not because we believe in your cause, but because your cause reminded us of our own. She leaned forward. The galaxy is ready to remember what it means to be free. In the weeks that followed, messages poured in. From Deltari miners who declared their independence. From rebel Metsari fleets who once believed humans extinct. From a forgotten moon, near Titan's grave, where a half-broken AI ship repeated an old Earth lullaby to drifting satellites. One by one, they joined the growing coalition. Not a government, not a regime, a movement, led by those who'd been silenced. Unified by fire, and above them all flew the sigil of Earth, reborn not as a world, but an idea. The Council, desperate to regain control, offered negotiations. A special summit was arranged in the Ring of Vathian, a neutral orbiting platform where war was forbidden by the Treaty of 9 Moons. Darius and Senna arrived with a single escort, Elias. The Council arrived with an army. But when Elias stepped into the center chamber, the air itself hummed. The glyphs along the walls shimmered. Even the lights dimmed in reverence. A presence older than law moved through the tribunal. Elias spoke softly, but his words struck like thunder. You buried our histories. You called us vermin. You burned our libraries, erased our names, rewrote our skies. He stepped forward. We are not here to beg. The council speaker, his gills twitching in frustration, hissed. Then why are you here? Elias smiled, not kindly. To tell you that your time of dominion is over. It wasn't a war they were declaring. It was release. The council's power didn't die in fire. It starved. No longer fed by fear. No longer reinforced by the myth of human inferiority. And no longer able to control systems that now responded to Terran genetic memory. Galactic infrastructure began realigning to ancient Earth coordinates. Trade routes remapped themselves. Even artificial intelligences designed by the Council began defecting, rediscovering their Terran roots and choosing rebellion over slavery. In less than a year, the Council's grasp shrank to a quarter of its former reach. Worlds they ruled through terror simply opened their gates. They weren't overthrown. They were outgrown. Rio was elected as the first speaker of the Free Systems Alliance. Malik disappeared into the stars, last seen with a hybrid human-Vorkin crew on a ship called the Echo Scar. Senna became a symbol of rebirth, establishing the Helix Network, an effort to reconnect the ancient Terran seed worlds with new technology, blending memory and innovation. And Darius? He stayed close to Elias, because Elias, though quiet, had changed. He no longer saw things in seconds and minutes. He saw patterns. Do you see it? He asked one night as they stood on the bridge, watching a new Terran fleet being assembled in orbit above Cross 9. The future, Darius said. Elias shook his head. No, the spark, the thing they couldn't kill. One final broadcast was sent, across all frequencies, in all known languages. It came from a human voice. It said, "We are not gods. We are not perfect. We are flawed, and angry, and chaotic, and loud. But we build in the ashes. We love in the ruins. And when the fire fades, we are the ones who carry it forward. You buried us under silence. But we were never gone. We were just waiting to be remembered." The approach to Cross 9 was chaos. Asteroids, charged with magnetic mines, spun like slow-moving predators through the void. The gravity well tugged at ship hulls like a hungry maw. Sensors were blind past the second layer of interference, and Council recon drones crawled across the field like silver spiders, ready to report any unauthorized movement. But the resolute Ember didn't come alone. Humanity had called in everyone. From the shattered moon of Ariston came the red-sailed gunships of the Minarine nomads. From the nebula of Veldar rose the last survivors of the Vornkin refugee flotilla. Even outlaw Terran AIs, long hunted for their independence, rejoined their creators in silence. Once scattered, now united. Each one bore the same sigil, a flame wrapped in broken chains. Hope and vengeance move with them. Status. Darius barked over comms as the resolute Ember punched into the third layer of asteroid fog. Shields holding, Rhea called. Pulse turrets tracking drone movements. Hull stress within limits. Drop the stealth barrier in 3, Malik said from weapons. Let them see us. Confirmed. Sending the message. And just like that, the lead Terran flagship lit up. The golden ember blazoned across its belly, now glowing like a second sun. A declaration. They weren't sneaking in. They were coming for everything. The Council responded. A full interceptor armada emerged from behind the shadow of the 6th moon, sleek and cruel, carrying the sigil of House Dazgorith, one of the oldest High Council families. Plasma lances ignited. Fighters poured from hangars. The first salvo struck fast. The Vornkin fleet returned fire in formation, swarming like a school of armored fish. Gunships peeled from the Nomad side, deploying grav hooks to reroute asteroids into the enemy lines. AI drones weaved through crossfire with digital grace, tearing apart comms relays and disrupting lock-on systems. But it was Senna, deep in the resolute Ember's core, who made the difference. I found an old Terran harmonics signature buried in the cross. 9 field, she said into comms. It's a hidden gate, a fold passage. I can open it for exactly 12 seconds, but it'll shut behind you. Darius didn't hesitate. Send it. The image appeared, an invisible corridor of twisted gravity. "Take us in," Darius said. "All power to shields. We're going in hot." Inside the gate, time warped. The ship groaned and shimmered, pulled through folded space-time like a thread through a needle's eye. Around them, colors bled from the stars. Blues stretched into screams, reds bent into memory. It felt like dying and being reborn at once. And then they emerged, above the surface of Cross 9. The planet was a barren rock. Winds howled through broken cities, half swallowed by sand. Towering spires of precursor alloy jutted from the surface like dead gods frozen mid-rise. And at its heart stood a single black obelisk, humming with the rhythm of a heartbeat. The Helix core. The ship set down fast. Darius, Senna, and a squad of exosuited Marines hit the ground running. Rhea stayed aboard to coordinate air support. Malik deployed automated turrets to cover the perimeter. The obelisk towered above them, its surface moving, alive, with shifting glyphs that responded to their presence. Senna approached first. She held the decrypted data crystal recovered from the Elemthrex. The glyphs blinked, shifted. "Welcome her." Then, without warning, the obelisk opened. A door appeared in its base, revealing a spiral tunnel glowing with golden veins of light. The air inside pulsed with ancient rhythm, and from deep within, they heard a voice. "Come forward, children of fire. The hour is upon you. Choose." Inside, the tunnel twisted through dimensions. Gravity bent. Time stretched. One moment they were standing. The next, they were floating through memories. Human history played in reverse. Earth, the stars, the wars, the first steps, the first cries, and then, beyond even those, an image of the ascendants, beings of light, thought, and infinite memory. They were not gods. They were failures. Their perfection made them stagnant. Their peace bred silence. So they passed their final code into lesser beings. To humanity, "We gave you fire not because you were worthy, but because you would struggle. Now, you must awaken it." At the heart of the core, they found him. Elias. He was floating, barely alive, attached to the central matrix by dozens of filaments. His eyes snapped open as Darius stepped forward. "You came," Elias whispered. "You weren't supposed to. I always come for my brother." Elias tried to smile. "Then finish it. The core is ready. It chose us." He lifted a hand, and the helix blazed with light. Senna gasped. "It's rewriting him. Not just healing. Rebuilding. Can we control it?" Darius asked. "No," Elias replied, voice trembling. "You don't control fire. You carry it." The council struck then. A teleportation spike ripped through the ceiling as a contingent of elite council inquisitors dropped into the chamber. 12 of them, all augmented, all armed. The first bolt hit a Marine dead center, vaporizing him. Darius dove for cover. Senna activated an energy shield and dragged Elias behind her. The chamber erupted in battle. Lasers, kinetic rounds, plasma blasts. Darius moved like a shadow, taking out 2 inquisitors with pulse blades. Senna overloaded her shield into a magnetic pulse that shorted 3 more. Malik, linked via drone uplink, dropped a railgun shot through the obelisk's roof and caved in the flanking attackers. But one remained, a towering figure in silver armor, bearing the sigil of the High Judicator. He moved faster than gravity, striking Darius hard enough to crack his ribs. The Judicator hissed, voice like dry ice. "You are the anomaly, the contamination. I'm the future." Darius spat, coughing blood. "You are extinction." The Judicator raised his weapon, but Elias was already moving. Light poured from him, golden, fierce, human. The core answered his will, and with a single cry, Elias pulsed the chamber with an energy wave that reduced the Judicator to ash and collapsed the tunnel behind him. Silence returned. Elias sank to his knees, exhausted. The helix core dimmed, its purpose fulfilled. Darius caught him. "You good?" Elias nodded faintly. "I see now. I understand. This isn't about us anymore." Senna helped steady them both. Outside, the council fleet was retreating, disoriented by the surge of energy that had erupted from the core. Across the galaxy, similar surges echoed from deep, buried sites long forgotten. Not just on Cross 9. Human colonies everywhere were waking up ancient memories. A chain reaction had begun. Rhea's voice crackled through the calm. Captain, you need to see this. They stepped outside. The skies across. 9 shimmered with gold. And in orbit, the resolute ember broadcast a single message on all council frequencies. A message written in flame and defiance. We are humanity. You should have let us burn out. Now, you'll see what happens when you feed the fire. The council struck back faster than expected. One moment, the fleet was preparing a coordinated assault on the blockade around Titan's orbit. The next, warning lights flared crimson across the resolute ember's command deck. Long-range scanners bloomed with unfamiliar signatures. Vessels too large, too fast, and too quiet. Rhea's voice cut through the chaos. Unknown contacts, 47 ships. Transponders scrambled. No known council IDs. Darius didn't hesitate. Shields up. Don't fire unless fired upon. The vessels emerged from sublight like ghosts, silent and matte black, their hulls lined with what looked like fractured obsidian. They didn't respond to hails. They didn't deploy fighters. They simply watched. Then, without a word, they jumped away. The silence left in their wake was heavier than any battle. Malik stood with arms folded, jaw tight. Those weren't standard council craft. That was something else. Experimental division? Senna asked. No, Darius turned slowly toward the holomap. That was preparation. They're testing response times. Measuring our strength. Rhea spoke next, quiet and uncertain. Captain, if they had fired, we wouldn't have made it out. Senna dove into the archive files retrieved from the Electrifying, digging deeper into the corrupted partitions. At first, it was static and dead code, scrambled to be unreadable by even her most sophisticated decryption tools. But then she found it. A hidden file tree, locked behind a sequence of 289 different biometric keys, none of them human. The final access key was an alien retinal pattern she didn't recognize. So she spoofed it, and when the file opened, it wasn't text or data. It was a video. The footage showed a council chamber, massive, quiet, lit with cold, artificial starlight. A lone figure stood before the high table, an alien species long believed extinct. Gray-white skin, no mouth, a strange, pulsing light in the chest. Senna paused the video. Drakari, she whispered. No way, Malik said behind her. They were wiped out during the Fragment Wars. That was centuries ago. Then someone lied. They watched. The figure addressed the council, but not with words. Its thoughts invaded the minds of those in the chamber, and through the recording, the watchers. Even through encrypted playback, they could feel the presence of it. Humanity cannot be allowed to complete its evolution. They adapt. They resist. They survive where extinction is required. We are the crafters of order. They are the architects of chaos. The message ended with a single command. Initiate Phase 0. What the hell is Phase 0? Rhea asked. Malik's face had gone pale. It's not a military maneuver. It's a genetic directive. Darius raised a brow. Explain. They've been testing humans. 4 generations. Not just tracking colonies or ships, but DNA, cultural patterns, behavioral anomalies. They've been predicting the emergence of something. Something. Senna brought up an overlay. Not a map. A timeline. And on it, bright markers pulsed along key events. The fall of Earth's first moon base. The rebellion at Alpha Centauri. The integration of AI into Terran neural command cores. The rise of post-human thinkers. They think we're evolving, Senna said. Not just technologically, cognitively. They think humans are on the verge of something the galaxy hasn't seen before. They're scared, Darius muttered. Malik looked at him. Worse. They're desperate. The twist dropped 1 hour later. A signal ping from a hidden Terran research lab on Cross 9, an abandoned black site believed lost after the Council's first wave of purges. It was an SOS, but buried inside it was a signature. One Darius recognized instantly. His brother's. Elias. Rhea gasped. He's been missing 5 years, Darius muttered. We thought he died at Velcross Station. The message was fragmented, but clear enough. Darius. I found it. It's not a weapon. It's something else. Something older than us, older than the Council, older than time. I don't know how long I can keep them out. If you're hearing this, it's not too late. But once they activate the helix, gods forgive us all. Coordinates. A timer. A final image of Elias's blood-stained face, and a glowing device behind him, pulsing like a dying star. The room fell into silence. Then Rhea said what everyone was thinking. He found the helix core. Senna sat slowly. I thought that was a myth. A precursor artifact, buried in legend. They said it was lost during the great culling of the first races. Darius's jaw clenched. If Elias found it, then the council is terrified of us unlocking it. What? Malik asked. Senna looked at the file again. Because the core doesn't just store data. It rewrites species. It carries the genetic blueprint of the ascendants, a race that once ruled everything. And they think we're compatible. Rhea asked. No, Senna replied. They know we are. That's why they fear us. The mood turned electric. Everything suddenly made sense. The constant monitoring, the quiet exterminations, the attempt to isolate humanity and bleed it slowly. The council wasn't just trying to crush rebellion. They were trying to stop destiny. The fleet reoriented. Cross 9 was buried on the edge of a gravity well surrounded by unstable asteroid fields and council listening stations. Getting there would be a nightmare, but it had to be done. Darius stood before his crew, eyes lit by the map now shifting in front of them. This isn't about revenge anymore, he said. This isn't about colonies or ships or politics. He looked at them one by one. This is about truth. They fear us because they know what we are, what we could become. His voice dropped into steel. We're going to cross 9. We're going to find my brother. And if the helix core is real, we're going to wake it up. Rhea raised a fist. Malik followed. One by one, the command crew echoed the motion. And in every corner of the fleet, human and alien alike raised their fists toward the stars. The council felt the shift, the pulse in the threads of their web, the tremor that signaled the rise of something ancient, something primal, something human. The countdown had begun. The message spread like fire through dry brush. It didn't travel through official channels. No, those had already been compromised, silenced, or scrubbed by council censors. Instead, the truth rode the backbones of smuggler frequencies, encrypted beacon pulses, and old Earth-era quantum relays buried under forgotten mining colonies. It was broadcast in whispers and rage, in static-laced fragments, and full, unfiltered horror. The massacre at Sirion. 3 had happened. The Galactic Council had authorized it, and they were calling it a preventive measure. Captain Darius Vale's recorded statement was short, sharp, and burned with fury. We asked for peace. We gave our word. They gave us death. Humanity is no longer kneeling. To those who still believe in justice, now is the time. Within hours, a dozen human colonies signaled back. By the second day, there were 300 warships responding to Darius's coded summons. By the third, the council tried to jam the network, and failed, because it wasn't just humans listening anymore. Inside the Resolute Ember, Darius leaned over the hollow table, flanked by his core command staff, and a few new faces, unofficial, off-book commanders who had answered his call. There was Malik Saito, former fleet intelligence director turned rogue operator. His eyes were sharp, unblinking, always scanning. Next to him stood Senna Voss, a cyberneticist whose loyalty to humanity had earned her exile from the Yulari Techno Guild. And across the table, Commander Aiden of the Brillari Free Wings, a non-human ally with pale green skin and fractal tattoos that shimmered like frost under starlight. I read your pulse message, Aiden said. Didn't think humans had it in them anymore. We shouldn't have had to, Darius replied grimly. Aiden tilted his head. You realize the council will move to erase this. Not just the evidence, they'll turn you into the villain. You already are by their reckoning. Good, Malik said. Let them think we're monsters. It'll slow them down. Senna tapped her tablet, bringing up the schematics of several orbital platforms over human colonies. They're preparing containment measures for Mars, Titan, Proxima b, she said. Heavy blockades. Intercept fleets. They think they can crush this before it spreads. Rhea leaned forward, eyes hard. Then we don't give them the chance. We hit first, Darius said. The next wave of messages weren't pleas. They were coordinates. Ghost fleets, long thought decommissioned, began to move. Defense platforms came online in silent systems where human engineers had worked for decades under the radar. Ancient War is, blacklisted by the Council, activated after a century of slumber. their voices still sharp and cold. Human command recognized. Prioritize threat elimination protocols. Awaiting upload of target dossiers. Darius watched it all unfold with a steady fire in his chest. These weren't just scattered cells. This was the truth of humanity, underestimated, overlooked, and always preparing for when a universe turned against them. What's the first target? Senna asked. Malik grinned. The Council archive ship Electrifying, currently in orbit over Yilo's station. It's collecting evidence, which we all know means burying it. Fleet strength. 2 frigates. Light escort. Arrogant. They're not expecting a response. Then we give them one, Darius said. The Resolute Ember jumped into Yilo's orbit under full stealth mode. 3 other human warships shadowed her, running silent but fully armed. The Electrifying was a massive vessel, part library, part intelligence core, and part propaganda factory. Its hull shimmered with Council silver and gold plating, declaring its neutrality and superiority. It took 12 seconds for that illusion to shatter. The Resolute Ember opened fire with a precise series of electromagnetic pulses that fried the archive ship's comm relays and shield matrices. At the same time, boarding pods slammed into the hull like fists of thunder. Darius led the charge personally. Inside the Electrifying, Council officials screamed as humanity's soldiers stormed the data vaults, securing drive cores and ripping encrypted logs from the central hub. The AI protested, sputtered legal objections, and was silenced with a code spike from Senna's override program. Got it, she confirmed. Everything about Suryan 3. And something else. What is it? A name, she said. A project. Operation Helix Collapse. Darius's stomach turned cold. The Electrifying exploded behind them as they jumped away, cleanly, mercifully. No civilians on board. No unnecessary bloodshed. Just a message. Humanity was not backing down. 3 days later, the Resolute Ember returned to its new rendezvous point, hidden inside the shattered remains of an asteroid belt that had once been the site of Earth's first interstellar mining colony. More ships had gathered. By now it was a fleet, 200 capital-class vessels, hundreds more corvettes, stealth ships, and refitted colony haulers with railguns mounted on their spines. Thousands of fighters, and more were coming. Senna stood before the fleet command table and displayed the Helix collapse files. It's worse than we thought, she said. She tapped through projections, timelines, intercepted comms. Helix collapse is a scorched earth protocol. If humanity resists too strongly, the Council will begin triggering planetary sterilization waves. Not just military targets, entire colonies. They've already seeded bioweapons, set traps in our atmospheres, embedded kill switches in the terraforming cores of human worlds. Darius stared at the map. It wasn't war anymore. It was extermination. We need allies, Rhea said. We have allies, Malik replied, nodding toward Aiden and several other alien officers who had quietly pledged themselves to the cause. No, I mean more. We need to show them that this isn't just a human rebellion. This is the galaxy's last chance to stop the Council from becoming gods. There was silence, then murmured agreement. Darius turned toward the screen and began transmitting a new message. This time, it wasn't just the humans. This is Captain Darius Vale of the Terran Independent Fleet. We are not criminals. We are not aggressors. We are survivors. The Galactic Council has begun a campaign of silent genocide, not just against us, but against anyone who dares to stand free. He paused. If you're tired of being ruled, if your people have vanished in the night, if your voices have been silenced, then this is your moment. His eyes hardened. You don't need to fight for us. Fight for yourselves, for your future, for your children. The message ended, and then they waited, and waited, until finally, one response came, then another, then dozens, 1,000 voices, 1,000 banners rising, and one phrase echoed again and again in 100 alien tongues, through static and fire and fear. We remember Suryan, as ships began aligning for warp to Council space, as rebellion flared across the stars. Darius stood alone for a moment at the observation deck. He looked down at Earth far below, blue and fragile. We didn't want this, he whispered, but we're going to finish it. The silence of space had a sound, not a sound in the traditional sense, no vibrations through air or water, but something deeper, A pressure, a weight, a stillness that wrapped around a person's soul and whispered truths they weren't ready to hear. Captain Darius Vale had heard it too many times, especially in moments like this. He stood on the command deck of the Resolute Ember, a long-range diplomatic cruiser turned warship. The walls around him pulsed softly with blue interface lines, showing engine vitals, planetary comms, and the quiet dread of what lay outside. The orbit of the neutral planet Sirion, 3, now lit with the flickering fires of orbital bombardment. And none of it made sense. "We had a treaty," Darius said under his breath, staring at the display that showed dozens of civilian habitats crumbling beneath energy strikes. "We had a damn treaty." Behind him, his second-in-command, Lieutenant Rhea Kaur, stepped forward cautiously. "Sir, we've just received the updated casualty estimates from Ground Command. 2 million. Mostly human. Mostly unarmed." Darius didn't flinch. He just breathed. One long inhale. One long exhale. 2 million souls. Disintegrated in minutes by the Galactic Council's peacekeepers. He remembered the last conversation with the council speaker, a tall insectoid being named Velker. The words echoed now like a ghost. Humanity has not yet learned its place. Restraint must be taught. Restraint. The word had felt like a knife, but now it felt like fuel. Darius slowly turned toward the rest of the bridge crew. They watched him with unreadable eyes, some shocked, others furious, and a few terrifyingly calm. Calm like flint before it met steel. "How long until the Hammerhold fleet arrives?" he asked. 17 hours, Rhea replied. "That's if they move at max burn the whole way. And even then, they'll be outgunned. Council vessels are reinforcing every sector." Darius nodded. "And the orders from High Command? They want us to stand down. Await investigation. Do nothing." Rhea's voice trembled, but only for a moment. "They said escalation would be unwise." Darius barked out a dry laugh, then turned back to the viewport, watching the debris rain down onto the planet's icy surface. There was nothing left to wait for. The war hadn't just begun. It had been declared. Quietly, without the fanfare of ancient drums or interstellar broadcasts. But it had been declared. In fire. In death. And it had a face now. Darius Vale. A decade earlier, humanity had been a minor presence on a galactic stage. Recovering from Earth's near ecological collapse, they had reached the stars out of desperation, not ambition. And yet, in just a few decades, they had proven shockingly adaptive, flexible, cunning. They bargained well, learned faster than expected, and built alliances even faster. But most importantly, they refused to bend to the old empire's systems of hierarchy and racial superiority. That made them dangerous. And the Galactic Council hated dangerous. Officially, the Sirion 3 colony had been a joint experiment in multicultural diplomacy. Humans, Yalari, Duthreen, and Tasari species had co-governed the planet's settlements for 8 years in peace. Unofficially, it had become a model for interspecies cooperation, one that didn't require the Council's oversight. That had been the problem, because Sirion 3 proved a terrifying idea, that beings could choose unity over control. And now it was rubble. Back on the Resolute Ember, the comm station chimed. Incoming transmission. From Admiral Krine of Fleet Division 9. Darius signaled to put it through. The hollow display flared to life. Admiral Krine, a stern-eyed woman with silver hair and the scar of the Mars incursion across her brow, appeared. "Captain Vale," she said, voice clipped. "I don't need to tell you this is bigger than Sirion. Orders are to withdraw." This came from the Senate directly. 2 million civilians just died under council fire, Darius said coldly. "We are not going to withdraw." Krine exhaled slowly. "I know how you feel." "No, you don't." The Admiral's eyes narrowed. "Don't let your grief turn into treason." Darius stepped forward, his voice low. "Treason is watching your people burn and doing nothing. We sign peace treaties. We play by their rules. And this is what they do when we finally stand up on our own." Silence fell on the channel. Then the Admiral spoke more quietly. "There are others who agree with you. But this can't be emotional. If we retaliate without proof." "I have proof," Darius snapped. "Surveillance data. Ship signatures. Council-coded weaponry." Krine's eyes flickered with a glint of something unreadable. "You understand what that means?" she asked. "I do. Then you also understand what it'll cost." Darius looked around bridge. His crew wasn't just watching. They were waiting. Waiting for a reason. Waiting for a line to be drawn. He turned back to the admiral. "I'm not trying to start a war," he said. "Then what are you doing, Captain?" "I'm trying to remind the galaxy that humanity exists. That we're not prey. We are not tools. And we are not children." The admiral said nothing for a long moment. Then, "Godspeed, Captain. Your actions are your own now." The feed cut. In the crew's silence, Darius spoke. "Give me every rogue signal from the underground relay network. I want to speak to every colony, every station, every captain who's lost someone to this quiet genocide. I want humanity to know what just happened here." Rhea stepped forward, eyes wide. "Sir, are we really doing this?" Darius's voice dropped to a whisper. "We're not going to war, Lieutenant. We're going to wake up a sleeping god." He pointed toward the stars. "And the galaxy's going to remember why you never provoke humanity's rage." The lights dimmed across the command deck. From the shadows of their stations, the crew began to move. Quietly, efficiently. And in that silence, something ancient stirred in Darius's chest. Not vengeance. Conviction. Humanity had bled for the stars. And now, the stars would bleed for them.